We want so badly for our daughters to be able to trust themselves and have a clear sense of judgment, and then the confidence to hold their ground when their values are being challenged, or, make good decisions, right? This is what we always say to kids: make good decisions, make good decisions. And that's what we want for our daughters. We want them to make really good decisions. We want them to not necessarily need us when there's a situation that requires using some sound judgment. So recently I had this conversation with one of my best friends whose 12-year-old daughter had let her friends, draw all over her legs with permanent marker. And my friend was totally upset. She was like, I told her not to do that shit before, and she did it anyway. She was worked up about it, as many, many parents would be. And the conversation that we had was, she was curious about, like, how do I approach this with her? How do I basically get her to not do this again? And what she said to me was, I want her to have sound judgment. I want her to not make this kind of decision again. What we had talked about was, I asked her, I said, well, what's the ultimate result that you want? Like, what is it that you want from this situation? And my friend said, I want her to not do stuff like that. I want her to respect her body and to, not do anything that makes her look trashy, or, and that was actually the word she used. And so the result that she wanted was, she wanted her daughter to make different decisions. So then we started to talk about, do you want her to make decisions based on what she thinks her mom wants her to do? And of course, my friend was like, yeah, don't we all want our kids to think, what would my mom want me to do? And then do that. On the surface, that sounds like what we would want. But in reality, that's not actually what we want. What we want is, we want our kids to actually be sound decision makers themselves. If your daughter is making decisions based on what they think you want as the parent or the mother, that means that they don't really have a sense of self. They don't necessarily make decisions because of what they want or what is most important to them. They are detached from that self-knowledge and that self-awareness and that self-knowing. So if they're going to make decisions based on what their parents want, then they will also make decisions based on what other important people in their lives want. And so maybe by extension, as they get older, that might be a boyfriend or friends or romantic partners. And we all know that that's the last thing we want, right? We don't want our friends, adolescent friends, making decisions for them. So as we kind of talked this through, what my friend came to realize was, oh, what I really care about is my daughter's ability to make good decisions for herself. How do we, from a very young age, help girls to make decisions for themselves? I'm not going to say make good decisions, because that's subjective, right? That is, what I think is a good decision might not be what my mother thinks is a good decision. So it's not about good or bad, but it's about, how do I make decisions that are aligned with my values, that are the best decisions for me, even if I'm 12? The way that we do that is, we actually get really curious. We model curiosity for them. And instead of giving them our opinion, which is what I was always so inclined to do, especially when I was running my girls groups and they would come in and they would tell me about a challenge they were having, or some guy. And I always just wanted to give them my opinion. Like, that guy is a loser. You need to dump him, right? But that doesn't actually help my girls make decisions in the future for who they're going to date, or what they're going to tolerate, or how high or low their standards are going to be, right? I want my girls to really think through for themselves what is important to me, and is this in alignment? Is this something that I really like? Is this something I really enjoy? What do I like about this? What do I not like about this? So these kinds of internal dialogues happen before the confidence comes, right? Everybody wants a confident daughter, but this happens before the confidence comes. So what do? We have to model for them a questioning process that allows them to ask themselves these same questions. So what I advised my friend to do was, instead of giving her opinion on her daughter's legs, which, by the way, her daughter knew that her mom was going to flip. She did not like it. But instead of flipping out, instead of even saying a word, I encouraged her to get curious about her daughter's thinking. Because remember, what she wanted was, she wants her daughter to make sound decisions. So if that's the case, then we need to understand her daughter's thinking. Her thinking is the only thing that matters, not the marker on the legs. It's her thinking. And so in order to get to work on somebody else's thinking, you have to understand their thinking to begin with. So I encouraged her to ask a curiosity question. Like, so here we are with the marker on the legs. What do you think about it? What made you decide to do that at the time? Do you like how it turned out? What do you like about it? What do you not like about it? Right? If anything. And really just being curious about how she made that decision and why she made that decision. But here's the kicker. Like, this is the most important part, is you have to actually do it from a place of curiosity. You cannot do this if you're secretly judging, because everybody knows when somebody is asking them questions and they are seething with judgment. And especially teenagers, they can sniff that out, right? If you have some hidden agenda where you're actually trying to get her to see that writing all over her legs is like gross and trashy and she should have never done it and she'll never do it again. If that's your agenda, it will never work. So you might as well just turn me off right now and stop listening. It will work to cause a divide between you and your daughter, right? Ultimately. And that divide will build and build and build throughout the teenage years and possibly even into early adulthood, although usually it passes by then. But so you have to really be curious about, what was she thinking? Tell me a little bit about what you were thinking. And why was this important to you? Is it important to you? How do you feel about it now? And now this particular friend, what her concern was, is this is right at the beginning of summer. They're getting ready to go on vacation. They're going to be bathing suits involved. And she's going to have these marks all over her legs. And she was like, she's going to look, trashy. And I said to her, I said, all of that aside, when she first comes home with the marks on her legs, ask these questions, be curious about it. Don't impose any kind of consequence. And then maybe a couple of days later, when those marks are still on her legs and now she's getting in her bathing suit, you can get curious again, but only at that point, right? Don't bring it up again. Only at that point. I can see the faded marks on your legs. How do you feel about it now? Do you still like it? Are you glad you let your friends do that or not? Again, no agenda, real curiosity here, and see what she says, and probably she's going to be like, I kind of wish I hadn't done this because it doesn't look great. She also might be like, I don't care. And one of the things I just want to preface here is sometimes when girls are particularly disconnected from the adult in their lives, or feeling disconnected or wanting to disconnect, they'll tell you they don't care because they want you to back off. And that's honestly a sign that they don't trust you. They don't trust you to not judge. They don't trust that you don't have an agenda. And so they want you to get away from them. And that's not what we want as parents, right? We want to establish a relationship of closeness and of trust. So when you ask her how she feels about it now, you really got to drop the agenda if you have one and let her respond, and allow yourself to learn from her response. So really listen to your daughter's response, see what she says, see how she feels about it now. And then that's the opportunity to have a meaningful conversation. The first time when she comes home with it, you're planting a seed for a meaningful conversation, but you're also letting her know that you trust her to know what she likes and doesn't like. And that is the most important thing. If she comes home and you just berate her, which my friend would never berate her daughter, but if you just berate her for the decision that she made, what you're telling her is, you can't be trusted to make your own decisions. You make bad decisions, in my eyes at least. And that's either going to, get her to dig her heels in, because now she recognizes that you are not a trusted adult. You are not somebody with compassion and curiosity about her and her life and her thinking and what's important. And that is going to drive a wedge between the two of you. So instead, you just allow yourself to be curious. A few days later, asking again, because that is the, kind of long-term consequence of permanent marker all over your legs. And then I encourage my friend, and I encourage anyone listening, to then use these two questions. These are questions that I ask my clients all the time, regardless of their age. These are questions that I ask my own child. These are questions, most importantly, that I ask myself over and over and over again whenever I'm in kind of a conundrum. And the question is, if you could go back and do this again, would you do it differently, or would you do it the same? Again, if you have an agenda, I cannot stress this more highly. This will not work. But if you are truly just curious, like, would you do it again? Would you do it the same way? If you're truly just curious, what you're doing is you are now showing her, you're guiding her through a reflective process, which then she can use herself. And she can um, walk herself through these kinds of reflections, even when her mom isn't around, right? So would you, if you could go back and do it again, would you do it differently? And if so, what would you do differently? And then the second question, and really let her talk this through, right? Don't interrupt her. Don't interject, right? You're just listening. And then the second question is, in the future, what will you do differently, if anything? And of course, as a mom, I hope that she would say, oh yeah, I'm not going to let my friends color on my legs. And whether she says that out loud or not is not what's important here. What's important is that she actually builds the skill of recognizing what she really likes, what's really important to her, and what's not important, how she feels about her body, how she feels about the decisions that she's making. That is the most important thing. And you're walking her through that process so that in the future, regardless of whether or not she lets her friends color on her legs again, she knows how to reflect on her decisions and learn from her decisions, grow from her decisions, so that she's really building out that prefrontal cortex that doesn't exist yet, but she's building out those kinds of critical thinking skills, the judgment and the planning. She's learning how to do all of that with your guidance. As parents, like, our jobs are to be mentors. We are to be not necessarily, these authoritarians, but we are to be mentors who are helping children to develop those kinds of cognitive skills that are really, really critical for leading happy and healthy lives. This whole situation reminded me of when I think I was in middle school for sure. And I remember I was at one of my best friend's houses, and we got Manic Panic purple hair dye. You guys remember Manic Panic by any chance? Bought it on Haight Street in San Francisco. We were at my friend Com's house, and I remember being really anxious. Like, do we do it? Do we not? And I mean, this was the 90s. So, dyeing your hair purple was not nearly as common as it is now. And we were just going to do the back. You pull your hair up and just do the back so that nobody can really see it. You can hide it from your parents. But I remember I was really nervous. I was nervous about my parents being mad at me. I was nervous about, like, showing up at school, because I never liked having all the eyes on me, so I was so nervous. And I decided to call my mom first at work. And I remember asking her, will you still love me if I dye my hair purple? I could feel her rigidity. I could feel her just like cinch up through the phone. All I remember is she said, Leah, don't you dare. So y'all know what I did. Dyed my hair purple, right? What I was looking for, I think, in hindsight. And of course, I couldn't have known this when I was 12. And she didn't know. She's at work, and her one of 3 kids is calling her, going, I dyed my hair purple. She's like, don't you dare. Like, she's just going on with her day. I think what I needed in that moment was actually somebody to be open to the possibility of, okay, well, yes, I mean, would I be mad at you for dyeing your hair purple? No, this is your body. This is your hair. And, I want to encourage you to, like, ask yourself, what do I think I'm going to get from this experience? And then if you want to try it, go for it. Now, I know that's probably a pipe dream. Most parents are like, no, but then it wasn't, because no matter what she could have said on that call, I was going to dye my hair purple. Like, that's the important thing to recognize here, is that I wasn't really looking for her permission, because I did it anyway. What I was looking for was her validation and her confirmation that even if I do something that she might not like, she will still love me. And I think that that's often what kids are looking for, is if I kind of experiment in these areas that are a little bit risky and a little bit scary, will my parents still be there? Or will my parent throw a wedge between us? And I think that most parents, we throw the wedges, right? We're like, because we feel like we need to control the kid, control the circumstance, control their behaviors and actions, but we don't actually have any control over their behaviors and actions. So the reverse of that is then, okay, if I don't want to throw the wedge and I know my kid's going to do what she's going to do anyway, then what do I do instead? And the answer to that is you get curious. You drop judgment. You drop any kind of agenda and you get curious about their thinking. And curiosity shows up in the form of asking questions. And the questions that we should be asking girls is, how does that make you feel? How do you feel in your body, right? We need that emotional intelligence and the emotional literacy. How does that make you feel? What do you like about it? What do you not like about it? And what is the experience that you were going for? And did you get it, right? Did you have that experience? And then celebrate girls, right? Like, let's celebrate girls in their purple hair. You don't have to celebrate, marker all over the legs if you don't love it, but let's just celebrate the fact that your daughter just had an experience of taking a risk and allowing her to feel all that comes with those risks fully and learn from them in a safe container, which is you, in a safe space with a safe adult that she can then process that through and doesn't necessarily have to go out and go to crazy extremes like I did in order to figure it all out for herself.